Welcome back. Mr. Shomi.
Yeah, so what can be done? What the government needs to do, the Parliament, the National Assembly, straight away, is make Chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution justiciable, particularly if you look at Clause 14, 2 and 3, which talked, the 2 is about the welfare, that the aim of government is about the welfare of the people. 3 is about inclusiveness of the Nigerian people in democratic governance. When you look at that 14.3, once you make it justiciable, it will be easier for anybody to go to court to challenge government to say, look, you have not involved disabled people in governance. You have not involved women in a substantial way, you know, in governance. So you have not substantially complied with Chapter 2, 14.3 of the Constitution. That is one. 2, National Assembly can come up, you know, with a quota system. Or, at best, the president has expressed interest in building an inclusive governance. Rather than us appointing members of opposition political parties into governance, why can't we resolve the problem once and for all? Let us have a meeting of minds between the political party, the leading political parties, you know, with a view that controls the parliament. Let's go to the parliament, you know, with a bill to say, look, women should have at least 30%, you know, representation. It doesn't have to be from this government. It can be from the next election. So that once that is passed, political parties are better prepared. Don't forget one thing. Go to any rally. Most of the people you find there are women. Most of the talks are men. You know, but these are stark realities.
I think I can safely say all the men are thugs. All the thugs are men.
Yeah. But the reality of what you see is that women are simply engaged to dance and cheer. And that is not right. The way we're treating our women is just very, very wrong. So except we
and
take...
the women accept it.
No, they are compelled to, because the structure of the political parties is such that you can hardly do anything without the male, you know, in a male-dominated environment, without even having the resources. You cannot even challenge them.
On election day, go and look at the queues. It's mainly women on the queues.
So it's quite unfortunate that we find ourselves in this situation, but it's not too late. Right. Government, I mean, President Buhari has stated clearly that he would love to build an inclusive government, and I have no reason to think he wouldn't do that. But we can go all the way, have a consensus, you know, agreement with other political parties on the percentage of posts that will be reversed for women, not only in appointments currently, but in future elections, so that by then political parties are well prepared for it. Another thing they can do is to look at the Federal Character, you know, Commission's Act, in the sense that is not, the Federal Character should not just be about ethnic issues, representation. They should strengthen that to involve, because that would also be easy to do, to involve gender, to involve disadvantaged people in a society.
Your thoughts?
I just want to say that why it looks as though it's a very Herculean task to move us from where we are now to where we should be. It shouldn't be something that we leave to chance. The process can start now, even from just the level of orientation. People become what they hear and what they see. If we begin to engage at our different levels and let people know that this is not what it should be, especially when you know, think about the fact that the world has now become a global village. What is happening in other climes can also happen here, regardless of the fact that our geographical look is different. So I want to say that it should start at the micro level of orientation and reorientation, and let's begin to see that possibility and pursue it with everything we have got. If we are really sincere about it, we can get there.
Well, let's look at what role the family can play in all of this, especially because it's not just, we're now to encourage those living with physical challenges, with any form of challenge whatsoever, to strive above that challenge, to see the challenge as not a weight, but as a tool that can be used positively, not as in to take anything for granted, so to speak. Right. So what role can the family and indeed society play to, because when you talk about orientation here, who's going to do the orientation?
That's why I said, let's start from our micro levels, starting from me, starting from you. One of the best stories I've had is the story of Cobams. I'm coming back to the role family can play, especially to children that have one form of disadvantage
Challenge.
or the other. Now, we all know that, you know, he's visually challenged. But the day I was hearing his story, I was moved to tears because he said, my mother did not at any time make me feel there's anything about me that is different from other children. Whatever chores that my other siblings were involved in, I was involved in. Whatever assignment they were given, I was given. So I grew up not even thinking about the fact that there is something about me that is out of place. I hope you know that the same child can be raised in another family where he has that sense of everybody should be answerable to me because of this. So the family has a lot to play because that is the first school all of us are exposed to. And the truth of the matter is that we can all start doing it in our little way. For instance, in my house, once in a while, yes, my son does more of that, washing the car. But one day I just came and I was asking, why is it that he does it always, all of the time? And what I had was, that should be a man's job.
Sure.
That was the day it ceased to be a man's job. Because, you know, it starts with little things as that. If we allow that to register in their mind, they just discovered. Somebody was telling me that, do you know, women only own the car when the car is functional and is working well. Immediately it breaks down on the road. It becomes their husband's car. And they say, come and pick your car. That started from somewhere. So I didn't want to raise a daughter that will grow up to be that, and we stop that from. So even all this matter of, you can become the best you want to be. As far as you are persuaded, that's what God wants you to be, and that's what you are persuaded to be. It starts from that little nudge, little encouragement, and removing that sense of being a female makes me less a human being.
The fairer sex.
So we all can start doing that and then push our daughters that whatever a boy can do, you can do as much and you can do better. With that little orientation, growing up to discover that there's really no difference. The fact that I'm a female does not make any difference. And that is why I was saying the earlier time that while I agree that we can start with the policy statement as a way of starting, really where I'm headed and what I really believe should be happening is I get it because I truly deserve it.
That thing about tokenism, yeah, I know he mentioned it when we started, talking about tokenism, especially when it comes to the political sphere of life, where they want to buy to show interest they want to run is millions of naira. So they now say for the women it's 70% off or it's free. Would that in any way encourage them? They said that it's for the women and for the physically challenged, and some of them came out to buy to show interest, even though through the primaries it was a different ballgame altogether. So the question about, I'm going back now to the issue of politicking here. So how do we get those things out of the way and make a level playing field for everybody, so that anybody who wants to serve knows that this is what it is, and it's easy, and you go in there and then you come out, you know you're there to serve and not to, not a business venture.
Maybe they shouldn't make it so expensive, so you won't have to be giving the women special discounts.
Should it even cost anything to show interest to serve?
The problem is really because of the way our political parties are funded.
Yes,
you know, that is the major problem. You know, and as long as we continue on that line without ensuring that members of political parties are contributing and parties are being managed, you know, with the resources contributed by the members, we would always end up in that situation. What you see is that instead of tokenism, what we need is positive action in support of women. You know, it's not a discrimination in any sense, because when you really look at it, if women are 50% or more of their population, what would be the justification for having a few women, about 9, I think, senators out of 100? How do you explain that? Because even on the basis of social justice, is that right? We need to ask ourselves. So we must do something. When you have injustice prevailing, you know, in representation, you must address it. Even God does not want us to practice injustice. So therefore, it is time for us to take a positive action, you know, to readdress the problem. when you look at the issue of orientation, we have National Orientation Agency spending billions of naira every year. Why can't we refocus, the National Orientation Agency to address some of these issues?
Why can't we have state orientation agencies? Why
Yes.
do we need to? Why does it have to be national?
There are
for
branches.
anybody to understand? No, even the branches, it's still National Orientation Agency.
I agree
Can't
with you.
the state set up an orientation agency that teaches these things so that can't one state just say we will be an example of what it ought to be a citizen of this country?
It
Is
should
not
even
possible?
be part of civic education right from school, so that people are aware we produce future leaders that at least will be highly sensitized on the need to ensure gender balance and gender representation, including the representation of underprivileged people, people with disabilities and all that. Because how do I tell the needs of people with disabilities? And the Constitution says the democracy must represent every one of us. So I'm not a disabled person, so there's no way I can advocate for them, better than themselves. Yeah. So how do we ensure we bring all this together? And the only way out is still we have to reflect the structure of the society, the demographic structure of the society in parliament. If you don't do that, we will continue to have the male-dominated environment that we have. Let me give you a good example, which many people are not thinking about. When Awolowo was talking about free education in those days, part of the issue involved, if you make education free at all levels, that will afford everybody, there will be no barrier to anybody going to school. Go to the rural areas. Till today, most of our people live in rural areas. In rural areas, because they just don't have the resources to send 2, 3 children to school, they would rather prefer the male child to go to school at the expense of the female child, and which is not right, because access to education is not free in those areas. Even though government proclaims education free at primary and secondary level, but in reality, do they have the schools in those rural areas? And where they have them, they are ramshackle, dilapidated buildings, and that children will have to walk 2, 3 kilometers before they get to school. The reverse is the case in the urban center. So these are some of the issues which we have to consciously, look at. What about access to health? What about access to good water? You have that in the urban centers, but you don't have it in rural areas. How many people have access to good health centers? Not even hospitals in the rural areas, and the distance they have to travel to access them. So these are major issues which we must look at holistically, and then look at how to embark on positive action, not discrimination. Positive action to ensure that at every stage, underrepresented people like women, disabled people, are not disempowered or disadvantaged, even in the allocation of state resources.
Let me give you the data for 2018. 5.6%, that is 86 women out of 1,534 of all elective positions at both national and subnational levels. 5.6%.
That is sickening.
Is it that we don't have women who are capable?
You and I know that we have them in maybe we even say in millions as far as this nation is concerned. While I was coming, part of the woman I was, trying to just remember that professor of mathematics that was the VC of, what's that her name?
Alele Williams. Uniben.
We just have them, they are just too many. So it's just that we are not ready to see it as the way to go. Immediately we see it as the way to go. They are there.
The question I asked earlier, I said, can't a state choose
take
to
it
be
upon
an
itself?
example?
Yeah.
Must it be at the national? Can't one state decide, okay, you know what, here in this state, we're going to do this and set an example for the rest of the country? Can't one state say, okay, for us, we're going to ensure that governance is inclusive all across board, women, the physically challenged, and indeed everyone?
It's doable, but it becomes the story of who belts the cat. All right? Because it is doable. One thing my mind, I've refused my mind to ever accept again in this life is that word is not possible. It is possible. So
okay, the other side of it is there any law against it?
Not at all.
There's
In
no
fact,
law.
Even from, it was
In
just
fact, the
even
law is in
referring
favor
to-
of it.
Exactly. I was just saying that. I was just to say that he even referred us to the
Constitution.
Constitution of the nation.
Yes.
And that should be our driving document as a people, isn't it? So if it's not against the Constitution, it's not against social justice, it's not even against the justice of God, who loves fairness and justice, then let's do it because it's doable. So, but the question is, while it is doable, who is that individual that will say, even if this is the only thing I'm able to do to write my name in the history of the political, evolution of this nation, I want to do it. So that will now bring us back to the question of why do even political officers seek offices in the first place? What you are saying now will take a man with a transformational mind to say, I'm not just go there for business as usual. Some things are not the way they ought to be. I want to go and rewrite history. I want to go and change things for what they are meant to be. If we can get such a person, it is doable. Because the question is...
But he has to go through either the political party or the state assembly and all that. He's not going to just sit down and take a decision and it gets done.
That still brings us to what I said earlier, that if we are really serious about this, all the stakeholders will be involved. But one thing you can't take away from transformational leaders is, regardless of what the situation and circumstances around them is, they find a way to do what at the end of the day, everybody, regardless of whether you hate them or like them as a person, you cannot deny the fact that the result is speaking. Because the truth of the matter is that we will not have that time when everybody will support that this is the way to go. It takes boldness and persuasion of heart to say, I will bear the consequences. So that's what separates transformational leaders from transactional leaders. Transactional leaders are there to get what they want to get, but transformation is not about my name. It's about the people, and it's about doing things that can make the generation after us better. I pray that one day, one time, we have a governor of a state that will do that.
Zachary says, why not a female inspector general of police? Bala Smiler says, he says he's thanking you guys for what you're saying. He says, Mrs. Sarah Jibril had only one vote during PDP convention in 2000. Right. Does that mean she's the only woman delegate in the convention?
Not
and
at
he
all.
says, let the women rise up and live up to their own expectations.
I agree.
You know that. Pedro?
It's about mindset. Look, when you continue to whip people up, when you force them, you try to dominate them psychologically, even though you are in the minority. It's just like apartheid, the way apartheid worked. You know, you just dominate them, conquer them, make them to understand their places in the kitchen. They have no role in governance. They can sit and eat the crumbs. Over time, when you continue to inflict that psychological violence on women, they begin to see the picture, they will accept it and see it as a reality. And that is why Biodu's call, for orientation, for me, matters. We have the National Orientation Agency. State government and federal can look at the curriculum. We can involve it, include it in civic education. Women need to regain, their self-esteem, because we continue to batter it on day in, day out. Let me give you a good example of a former Minister for Health under, I think it's Obasanjo's regime, who was tried, for infractions.
Oh, yes.
And
Professor Grange.
Professor Grange. Yes. This woman was found innocent. She was forced to step down. She was internationally reputed. She came to help our country as Minister for Health. They made some allegations against her, forced the woman out. The woman was tried in court, found to be innocent. Till today, no government has ever considered the thought of bringing this woman back into government. So many women will learn from those examples. These are things which we need to continually...
And run away.
And run away.
Yes.
Challenge. Don't let them destroy your reputation.
We have run completely out of time. Thank you very much, gentlemen. The two Bioduns, Biodun Showunmi, a social commentator, and Biodun Bamdele, a human capital development expert. Thank you very much for coming to share your insights with us this morning. Thank you.
We just want to use the opportunity to apologize. Our guests in Abuja were not able to take them into some technical matters. But we'll bring them on. You'll get to meet Esther and Collins one of these days when we're discussing this matter again. We'll be back shortly.